All right, what's up, y'all? How we doing this morning?
Weak
sauce. Holy cow. Can we try that one more time? 9 a.m. at 9:10. How we doing this morning? Okay, that was like 30% better. Okay, 30% better. I shaved my head this morning just to look like Connor, okay, just so we could be twins to teach this message. This is my friend Connor McFadden. Y'all say hi, Connor. Oh, you guys are depressing this morning, okay? Look, I get it's like post-holidays, but like when somebody says, can you say hi, Connor, and the whole room goes, hi, Connor. Y'all, this is my friend, okay? Can you say hi, Connor, one more time? So much better. Look at the joy in the room, okay? Connor is one of our pastors here on staff. He has been here at North Coast for 15 years?
12 years.
12 years, like I said, 12 plus 3. And Connor he's a dear friend of mine here at North Coast. I love working with him. I got to go to Ecuador with him about a month and a half ago-ish, and we traveled down there, just had a blast. We laughed harder than I've laughed in a really long time together. You know that laughter where your stomach hurts afterwards? That was so many conversations with Connor and our friend Tracy. And I love Connor's heart for the church, for North Coast, but also for the community that we find ourselves in. He's our missions pastor. And so not only like community service, how many of you have ever been involved with like a weekend of service, something rather, where you like go out and serve the community? Awesome. So Connor's the one that organizes that. He's also our global missions pastor, though. So he works with churches around the world and our missionaries here at North Coast. And so this morning, we're in our series called Church 101. And I love even that song that Hunter just sang, where he said, Jesus, what a savior, what a friend. The line that stuck out to me was, God, you meet me where I am. That I think sometimes, maybe as high school students, you can come to church and think, like, I got to put my, like, church face on, right? Or maybe, like, this isn't really a thing in San Diego, but like 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, probably still today in the South, you have, like, church clothes. Any of y'all ever heard of that before? Okay? Again, not a thing in San Diego. But in most places, like conservative Southern Baptist churches in the south of the U.S., it's like you got your shoes that you only wear to church. You got your clothes that you only wear to church. Like, these are your nice church clothes. And so sometimes when we come to church, maybe in San Diego you don't put your church clothes on, but maybe you feel like you kind of got to put your game face on. You're like, I gotta act a certain way. I gotta talk a certain way. I gotta like have it together when I come to church. And I love that song that just says, God, you meet me where I am. And that's our heart for this whole series, is we want you to come into this room and be able to ask the questions of, like, wait, who is this God, and what is worship, and how can we trust the Bible? And so this whole series, we've been asking, what do we do at church, and why do we do it? What are the things that we do, and why do we do it? And so today we're talking about service. This is a huge element of what we do in church, and we want to kind of break down the why behind it. So if you have your Bibles, open up to John chapter 13. I'm just going to read a quick verse for you here in maybe one of the most famous, quote-unquote, service passages of the Bible. But as you're turning there, I want to tell you just a brief story. Service is one of those things where I think, like, nobody wants to be called like a servant, and nobody wants to be like, hey, you should serve me, and you're like, ooh, yippee. Right? But I believe wholeheartedly this is one of those things that God gives us the gift of service because he knows at the core it's better for us. Hey, as a parent of a 2-year-old, I have to tell my daughter to do things or to not do things, not based off of what she wants, but based on what I as dad know is better for her, right? That makes sense, yeah? So a couple weeks ago, we were doing baptisms here at church, and there was like 30-something people that were baptized over in the plaza, and it's like, when somebody's getting baptized, there's like a couple people baptizing, and then there's the person getting baptized. So at any given time, there's like 3 to 4 people in the tank per person getting baptized. So if there's like 30-something people, that's probably like somewhere between 60 and 85 people in the tub for that whole service. After the service, they're like draining the baptismal. Y'all ever seen them do this, where they like stick the hose in the baptismal and then they drain the whole thing into the grass over in the plaza? Paige and I were hanging out, and we're like talking to our friends in the plaza, and I look over, and I kid you not, Piper is standing at the end of that hose drinking the baptismal water. And I like threw up in my mouth a little bit, and then I was like, that is so disgusting. Like the amount of, and I walk over there, I'm like, Piper, I grab her hand, I'm like, Piper, no, like don't drink. I have like a little, like it's a little Yeti with a P on it, Oh, it's cute, right? And I'm like, this is like fresh drinking water. Like, I will give you this. And she's like, no, and goes back to the baptism water. And I'm like, oh, my Lord, right? Like this, raising this little 2-year-old is so difficult. But as dad, I'm not telling her no because I'm a jerk, right? I'm not telling her what to do because I'm like, I have some like power complex over her. I know what's best for her. And let me tell you, friends, drinking baptism water ain't best for her, okay? Like that's just like a cold, hard fact. Like you drink that, I don't know what happens, but I feel like it's worse than COVID, right? I don't know. It's like that's not holy water. That's just disgusting. So here in John chapter 13, Jesus gives us a new command, and this is your first fill in the blank here, okay? So I'm going to read this verse, and based on this verse, you can fill in the blank, okay? Contextually, Jesus is at dinner with his guys. He gets up from the table, he wraps a towel around his waist, and he washes all of their feet, which in that day and age, right, how many of you think feet are disgusting in 2022? Okay, cool, right? I promise you, 2,000 years ago, they were like 100,000 times more disgusting. You don't have modern day plumbing. You have like donkeys and horses and ox, like all these things walking the streets. It's just like sandals are rudimentary. Like the feet are just gross. Okay, so Jesus gets up from the dinner table. He acts as the servant of his buddies, of his friends, of his disciples, and he goes around and he washes every one of their feet, and then he looks at them and he says, do you understand what I've done for you? He's given them a basis to understand what love looks like, okay? And John chapter 13, verse 34 says this. If you're there, say preach. It says, a new commandment I give you, okay? Love one another. Pause right there and look up at me. Okay, sorry, I'll say it again. Pause right there and look up at me, okay? Real quick. A new commandment I give you, love one another. This is like the greatest crescendo and letdown of maybe anything that Jesus teaches. When Jesus taught, people listened. And Jesus says this to his disciples. He goes, a new commandment I give you. And I imagine them go, like sitting at the dinner table like, oh, bro, hey, a new one. Hey, he's going to give us a new one. He goes, a new commandment I give you. Love one another. And they're like, wait, what? Like, I imagine them, has anybody ever said something like they found out something brand new, but you and all your friends know that it's not new? That ever happened to you before? They're like, guys, check out this new song. And it came out in like 2017, and you're like, who's going to tell them? Hey, this is that moment. He's like, a new commandment I give you. Love one another. I imagine them sitting around going like, who's going to tell Jesus that's not new? Like, that's not a new commandment. Like the Old Testament, it's a part of the Shema. Like, a hero Israel, the Lord our God. Hero Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Wow. And then it's the very next thing. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. When asked earlier, somebody asked Jesus, what are the two most important commandments? He goes, love God and love one another. But he goes, a new commandment I give you, love one another. But here's where the newness comes in. He says, a new commandment I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And then it says this, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So Jesus puts an equal sign from love to service. Like, he just demonstrated to them what love looks like, and it's serving one another. And this is the part where it's like nobody wants to be treated like a servant. Nobody wants to be commanded like, hey, serve me. But I think there's something in here where the God of the universe, he invites his disciples, his followers, his learners, the people that have been learning under him for 3 years to say, hey, I'm going to give you a kind of a life hack into understanding what love looks like, and it's directly tied to service. So this morning we want to unpack a little bit, why did God give us this gift of service? Why is it so important? Why is it so crucial to him that in his very last dinner with his guys, he's going to define love as it has everything to do with serving one another. It has everything to do with serving each other, that not making life about you, but taking the same example of Jesus who got up from the table, wrapped a towel around his waist, and said, I'm going to show you what love looks like. I want to unpack that a little bit more this morning.
Hey, first passage I want you to turn to Galatians 5:13, and here's a question for you real quick. It may just be me, but I feel like if I look at the last year and I think about some of my closest friends, people I know, even neighbors, family, does it seem like people are more depressed than they normally are? Do you feel like, I would almost venture to say, even in this room, we have different tiers of that. Some people are like, man, I've never been more down than I have in the last few years. And the thing that I found is I work with a lot of people who have depression over the years. The last actually probably 15 years, I've spent some of my time working as a counselor with people who have depression. So I see it a lot. And I pick up on subtle things about it. And I'm a learner. So I'm always trying to understand what is going on with depression. And so the thing I want to pose today is that when we are depressed, oftentimes it becomes about my world and how I feel right now. Just think about that for a moment. I feel down. So we start thinking about, hey, what could I do to feel better? And I start looking forward to those things, and that becomes like a consuming thought. If I do this, I'm going to feel better. And the hard part is during that sort of mindset, it really becomes about what's going on with me. And my world becomes about one person, me. And in that, the hard part is that sort of mindset never makes us feel better. We could never get enough of me to ever feel really good. So I want to give you the antidote to that. The thing that really will help everyone in this room when you're feeling down or depressed, how do you get out of that? And it's simple, is that in our, I'll give you your fill in the blank. Serving others is the antidote to apathy and depression. So apathy, what is apathy? Well, it's just feeling kind of numb. You ever just feel numb? Like, I don't feel at all. Nothing. Someone tells me something super sad, and I'm like, all right, well, you ever feel that way? I don't feel anything at all. It almost surprises you at times, like, I don't get it, but I don't feel. And apathy is one thing, but when we hang out in apathy for a long time, it often leads to the next thing, is depression. I feel down most of the time. So I don't sleep, I don't feel good, I'm worried, I just feel depressed or sad. And so that's that sort of mindset of just, I feel down, it's about me and how I feel about right now. So I'm going to give you kind of two routes you could take with that, and it's Galatians 5:13. It says, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. So there's kind of one route. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. And so I like this reminder, is that we have a ton of freedom. God has given us so much freedom. And even at this age, you may not understand how much freedom you truly have, but we have a ton of freedom. Even the fact that you could really just leave right now. If I sucked, you guys could all walk out of this room right now. Just let that sink in. Don't do that, but you could. You could leave. You could do whatever you want. You have so much freedom. And God's question is, hey, what do you do with that freedom? Because when we start indulging in what makes me happy, the route in that is almost always feeling worse. And the great contradiction is we look at this and go, hey, I want to be free. And when I can do whatever I want, I'm going to be super free, right? I can do whatever I want. No one's going to tell me what to do. And it's in those times we're actually the most enslaved than we've ever been, because we will never truly be happy when it's all about us. And if we pick the other pathway, it's so contradictory. But when we are immersing ourselves in the lives of other people, we will never be more joyous, and we will never be more free. And so if you felt down, I want to encourage you, make it about other people. I saw this firsthand. I was working at a mental health center. I was the only dude there. I'm like 24, 25 years old. I'm wearing a shirt, tie, and my job at this place is during the day, picture a room like this that's going to be filled with depressed women who all have children. I didn't have any kids, and I'm supposed to like work with them. We're going to do these groups. We're going to talk about our feelings. We'd all be in a circle together, hanging out, and I'd be like, how do you feel today? How do you feel today? How do you feel today? And it was crazy because some of the people who would come in were so depressed and down, they wouldn't even brush their teeth. They wouldn't even shower. They wouldn't even get ready. Someone would drop them off. They would walk in, and it was almost like a lifeless body was sitting down. And so here's me, ton of energy. I got my shirt on. We're playing Wii ping pong. I'm like doing yoga with them, trying anything. It's just like exhausting. And the thing was crazy is that never worked. for these depressed people. I just couldn't get it. I'm trying everything. I'm doing the best I can. Nothing would work. Every day was the same thing. And so at church, coincidentally, we had this big service project, and I just started going to North Coast Church, and I served all weekend long. And the craziest thing is I wasn't tired. I actually came back to work more refreshed, and it got the wheels turning. I thought, man, maybe there's something to this. I've been serving all weekend, but I'm not tired. I'm feeling more energized. I wonder, here's a crazy thought, can I get all these depressed women to serve somewhere? So we came up with this plan, and it was called Paying It Forward. We're going to find someone that has worse off than we do. We're going to go there. We're going to paint the entire interior of this building where all these homeless, schizophrenic, bipolar people hang out all day. It's like a day program, and we're just going to see what happens. And I was super nervous. This could totally bomb, right? All these depressed people, what if they hate it? What if it makes them feel worse? Oh, my goodness. So we get them all together. We get all this paint, and I just kind of watch it all play out. I watch all these women who I've never seen smile, never seen excited about anything, never seen them talk to each other, and never seen them laugh. We get them all in this room. We give them this paint, and I'm just watching. And the craziest thing was that these women started laughing and smiling, and throughout the day, there was a life brought into them that I've never forgotten ever since, because what is true for them is true for you, is that we will never be happier, we'll never be more joyous, and we'll never be more fulfilled is when we're serving other people. And so I want to challenge you even today. If you're wondering even what does that look like for me, here's your prayer. God, what would you have me do today, and who can I serve? And in those types of prayers, you will find that God will bring someone into your life. And it's no longer about us and what we want or how bad I feel or even what I want my freedoms to be or all those types of things. All that goes away. And you'll find that when we lose ourselves, we become literally enslaved to serving other people, we will never feel more free. And we're not depressed anymore. We won't be down anymore. It's not that those magically go away, but you will find a joy that comes from being immersed in serving other people. And so I just want to encourage you, even at this age, you could be such an amazing instrument to God, because people your age aren't thinking that way. But if you want to have some sort of impact, that you start immersing yourselves and loving even the people in this room, the person sitting next to you, and asking yourself, how do I bless that person? You'll find that your life will change, even if theirs doesn't.
Yeah, man, that's so good. That's so good. I love that. And I love that you're somebody that gives us that opportunity in church consistently to go out and to serve, and life groups all over North Coast are doing that. This next section, your fill in the blank there is, I'm going to give you the, right before we talk about this, but it says your relationship with Jesus in private spaces prepares you for service in public spaces, okay? And here's what I mean by that. Turn to Mark chapter 2, verse 35, okay? This is your second gospel, so your Bible's got an Old Testament and a New Testament, and their New Testament starts with 4 guys' names: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are called the Gospels. That word gospel means what? Good news, okay? So we're going to be in Mark chapter 2, verse 35 here, okay? You don't have a Mark 2:35? Well, that's because it's written wrong on here, okay? It's Mark 1:35. Thanks, Jackson, okay? And thank you, Braden. I probably sent it to him wrong. It's probably my fault. Hey, Mark 1:35. Sorry about that. What if you don't have Mark 2:35? Then your Bible's wrong. Get out, okay? Mark 1:35. This is... I've read this a million times, and it still blows my mind, okay? Jesus, I love that we were just talking about this, of like the life hack, the secret to anti-apathy, anti-depression, like this joy-giving. It's the antithesis of what you would think. Like, if you give me a day off, and you're like, Austin, do whatever you want to do right now. I'm going to sit on the couch. I want a big bag of the sour cream and cheddar, like Ruffles chips, and like some other foods and some Celsius, and like I just want to sit and I want to watch the World Cup, or I want to watch football. Like I want to watch football all day today. Okay, I want to watch my Raiders suck, okay, because they do. Like I just want to sit and I want to, but you know what happens? Like whenever I do something like that, whenever I just like take a day and I just like indulge in me, I rarely feel better at the end of that day. I rarely like get to the end of a day where I sit on the couch for hours and hours and hours and I'm like, I feel great. And usually it's like, ugh. But I love that Connor said this, and he even told personal stories of the days that, man, my life is not about me, and I get to go and I get to serve, or we get to be in Ecuador, and or the moments even just like with my own family where I'm like, I don't want to do the dishes, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to do the dishes right now because my wife's 25 weeks pregnant, and my 2-year-old is like, she's a lot, and I'm going to take her, and I'm going to go on a walk with her. The days that I'm like, I live selflessly, they're so different for me. Those days, they live out differently, and I love that Jesus not only gives us the command to say, hey, you need to serve one another, but he gives us the example. And here's another place where Jesus very vividly gives us a very important example to live after, okay? So in Mark 2:35, a little bit of context. Sorry, 1:35, I'm sorry, okay? Like Connor said, you have the freedom to leave at any moment you want. No, I'm just kidding, okay? Mark 1:35, contextually, Jesus has just performed his first miracle in the book of Mark. There's people flocking to the door of the place that he's staying, and there's so much opportunity right in front of him to serve other people. Hey, does that make sense? Like Jesus is on mission. He's living his ministry. He's preaching. He's teaching. People from all around towns are flocking to him, and this is the example that Jesus gives us. Mark 1:35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. When they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else to a nearby village so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." So Jesus tells us two things here. One, he came to preach, not to heal, not to perform miracles. His purpose on earth was to preach the good news of the gospel. And we'll see this over and over and over and over again. The reason Jesus came is to declare, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Nobody gets to the Father except through me. But I love the example that he gives us here of in the middle of the chaos, very early in the morning, he gets up, he goes to a solitary place to spend time with his Father. And if Jesus made that a priority in his life, friends, you and I, we must follow suit and go, hey, our own personal, private relationships with Jesus in the private, our own home, in whatever that is for you. Like, it doesn't have to be early morning. If that's the middle of the day when you have an hour-long break, if that's at night when you're like, man, I'm more awake at night. Here's what it can't be at night, though. And I promise you, we've all been there. I know I have, right? You're like, oh, I got to spend time with God, like solitary place here. And then you lay you lay your head down on the pillow. It's like late at night, and you're like, dear Lord. Right? And it's like, well, that's your quiet time turns into your like nap time. My dad had a friend in college who named his bed the Word. Okay? And it was like, what'd you do this morning? I just spent the whole morning in the Word. Right? Just me and the Word. We're just deep in the Word. Right? And it's like, make sure. I love that Jesus left. He went to a different place. He went to a different space to go, God, me and you, I have to be good. Me and the Father, we have to spend time together so that I'm pouring out. Like, only when you have a full cup can you pour out to the people around you. So your own personal, private relationship with Jesus is what prepares you for that service in public spaces.
So when I was, so my parents, you'll get this someday, but I've got it several times now. My parents dropped off this box. It's the box of Connor's stuff from when I was a kid. And getting this box is always humbling to me because I never know what's going to be in it. It's always the most random stuff that I thought was like super cool when I was 7 and then when I was in junior high. And in looking in this box, it is a reminder to me of how lost I was for so many years. And it's very humbling. So I got one of these boxes recently. These are true stories. I have like 1 million true stories that are all embarrassing, but for ministry, I guess they're useful. So I pull out 2 hats out of this box. Now imagine, so in 7th grade, I had 2 hats I wore all the time. One was red, and I got it lettered. I don't know. I don't think you guys do this, but I think it's going to be a trend soon. Just mark my words. Lettering on hats was like the jam when I was in middle school. Like you would get a hat, but you would put something on it, like a name or whatever it was. And so it's back? Okay, there you go. Disregard. I've predicted something that's already been back for a month, so I'm old. Anyway, so I had one hat, no joke, and it was red, and it said Lil Mac on it. Not Little Mac, Lil Mac, Lil Mac. Now, what that meant, no idea. The other hat I had that I wore all the time was a hat that was black, and it said Booyah on it. Now, you may be asking yourself, what does Booyah mean? Where does one come up with a phraseology of Booyah? Well, you're asking excellent questions, my friends.
Every time you put it on, you just go, Booyah.
So here's where you got Booyah. So I was at an Oakland A's game. There's like a G'd out, and I grew up in the Bay Area, so it was kind of gangsterish, and we had our pockets. But I was at an Oakland A's game, and there was like 6'4" black dude that looked like he was in a gang, and he had gold jewelry on. Do you know what he had on his hat? Booyah. So, my friends, the question is, what does Booyah mean? No idea. So I rep this Booyah hat and this Lil Mac hat. Imagine me, but a version of me like shorter, like this tall. So it's just a cluster of just madness and weirdness and insecurity. But the thing that was so real then was a thing that stayed with me throughout most of my life is the question of like, who am I and what is my identity? And there were so many times I had no idea who I was, so I just grasped onto something like a Booyah hat. But it didn't stop there. And so in my life, I actually caught myself in this pattern of just pursuing things, just looking at stuff. And I remember being at San Diego State. I was 22 years old. I graduated. I got what I felt like was going to be my dream job. I don't know if anyone's surfing here. No one surf. Okay, you surf. So I worked for a surf company, and in that, this company gave me a whole line of their clothes. They actually gave me 2 seasons of clothes. They said, here's 30 shirts, here's 10 wovens, here's 5 sweatshirts, here's 10 pairs of pants, here's 10 hats. Like, imagine just someone gives you 2 seasons worth of wardrobe and just go out and push this product. I had no agenda. I had no one telling me where to be or what to do or when to actually work. It was a completely commission-based job selling surf attire and just demonstrating this line of clothes and trying to get people to buy more of it. And I felt like this was going to be me. In fact, I was convinced it was me, and so much so that when I graduated, I was stoked. Like, I'm going to work in the surf industry, and I'm going to arrive at that thing I've never had. I'm going to find me. I'm going to find my identity. And what happened is in that 3 months in, I went from being pretty well-adjusted to spiraling down to being the most depressed I'd ever had in my life because I was pursuing a version of my identity and it wasn't fulfilling me at all. And the craziest thing that happened, actually, I was thinking about it this morning. I got invited, or I think someone told me about a church or something, but I randomly drove from the Bay Area all the way down to San Diego, and I just walked in the back of a church, just sat down. I'd be like the kid, not even in these rows, but in the very back, and I just sat down. And someone was like, "Hey, what are you doing back here?" And they like, "We work at a youth group. You should come check it out." Like, what's that? What are you talking about? And so they invited me to go to youth group. I went there. The next week, I sat down, and I don't know what happened, but in that, we started praying together, and the something just broke. And I couldn't, in that moment, describe what was happening. But imagine some guy comes in here and starts crying, and you've never seen him before, but didn't stop crying. That was me in church for the first time. It's just, I don't know what's happening. But I started volunteering in that youth group. I never looked back. I was just part of their youth group. I didn't even know anything about God, and yet I was just volunteering with these high school students. But the thing I realized in that is that I was connecting for the first time to God's purpose. It didn't matter the youth group. It didn't even matter what I was doing. It was that I started serving God. And in that, everything that had been lost found its identity. And so the thing I want to tell you, if you're wondering, hey, what is it that I'm meant to do? Or who am I going to be? Or God, what is my purpose, my calling? It's so simple. We find it in our service to others. is that we find ourselves in our service to others. We were made to serve others. So here's your verse, Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. This is just amazing. I want you to just break this down for a moment, is that we were created wonderfully, beautifully. God's perfect creation. If you wanted that about yourself, isn't it amazing that our Maker made you perfect, with intention, with love, with care? He put so much into you. And it didn't just stop there. He said, now I'm going to use you. That a God so great, he could create everything and still say, you know what, I'm going to do all that and I could do everything, but you know what I want to do? I want to use you. And when he uses you and we are used by him, we find our worth, our purpose, and it is the same thing that rocked me is the same thing that will rock you, is that we were made to serve. Don't get lost in, well, what exactly? Is just we will find ourselves in the action of it. And if you're not quite sure, I bet you, I would love to wager this. Just try this out. As you serve other people, I feel like both of my points are very much the same, is that we will get lost in our service to other people. We find who we are. And once that happens, you'll look back at your life and go, I don't know when it happened. It just happened, is that I started serving. And now I'm here. And it's amazing.
So good. So good. Thank you, Connor. Just as we close, I just want to give you like a couple practical, tangible ways that you can do this. The first one I would say is the hardest place to live this out is at home. Okay? Like y'all are still in 9th grade, 10th grade, and the reality is like you have 3 or 4 years left at home. And for some of you, like you have an awesome house with awesome parents who love you and are for you, and it's like a really healthy environment. For others of you, home is like a really hard place. It's a really difficult place to be, and yet I would challenge both of those groups of people, or wherever you fall on that spectrum, find ways at home where you can serve, maybe even without being asked. Right? Find ways where you can take out the trash or do the dishes or walk up to mom or walk up to dad or grandma or grandpa or uncle, aunt, whoever that is for you at home, and just going like, hey, is there anything I can do to help out tonight? Or, hey, is there anything I can do to help out today? Find ways to not make life about you. And then the second place is, I would say, here in NineTen, there are multiple opportunities for you to get involved, to serve, whether it's on our worship team. You can come to Band Labs tomorrow afternoon. If you want to be on our house manager team to kind of help set this room and prepare for service, we have an opportunity for that. If you want to be on our food and beverage team and help prepare bagels and coffee, we can do that. If you want to be on the welcome team, you can do that. We have so many opportunities for you to get involved. So if you're sitting here and you're like, man, you hear like Connor going, I'm trying to find my way, and I'm trying to find what I'm made for and what's the purpose of this whole thing. And NineTen is a place where you're starting to find that traction and that belonging. Get involved here. So first and foremost, do it at home. Secondly, I would just say, I'm inviting you in. If you want to know more about that, find Braden, find myself, Tracy, Karis in the back, Lauren. Ask one of your leaders to go, hey, how do I get more involved? How do I step into this thing? Find Maddie and go, hey, is there a way that I can serve more at NineTen? So we love you guys to death. Thank you, Connor, for being with us this morning. And we got a house party on Wednesday, y'all. We'd love to see you there. Backyard Olympics. Make sure you're dressed up. If you don't know what you're dressing up as, ask your life group leader. And then, gentlemen, bring that life group sign up or that men's retreat sign up. We would love to see you this weekend, okay? Let me pray for us, and then we'll be done. Booyah. Can I work booyah into a prayer? Okay, all right. God, we just thank you for this morning. Thank you for an opportunity to gather together, God, to worship you through music, to hear from you through your word, God, through Connor. And yeah, we love you a whole lot. Thanks for just the fun that we get to have together as a community. God, may we be a people that are marked by service. Would that be something that is characteristic of us here in NineTen? We love you. It's in Jesus' name we prayed. We said, booyah.